Michael slumped onto the worn wooden bench, the squeak of sneakers and shouts of his teammates echoing around him. It was the same story, every single time. Coach Thompson was calling out names, assembling teams for a scrimmage. Jake, the star point guard, was always first. Then came Marcus, the towering center. Next, it was usually either Emily or Sarah, the quick-footed guards. Name after name was called until only Michael remained. He knew what was coming. Anne. "Michael, you're with whoever's left," Coach Thompson said, barely making eye contact. A few stifled giggles rippled through the gym. Michael's cheeks burned. It wasn't that he wasn't trying. He loved basketball, maybe even more than Jake did. He dreamed of making impossible shots, of leading the team to victory. But in reality, he was just Michael. The guy who got picked last. He wasn't untalented, exactly. He could dribble okay, and his passing was decent. But he wasn't flashy like Jake, or strong like Marcus. He was just average. And in the competitive world of high school basketball, average wasn't enough to get noticed. Despite the constant disappointment, something inside Michael wouldn't let him give up. It was a stubborn spark, a refusal to accept his place at the bottom. He spent hours watching basketball videos, studying the moves of his favorite players. He practiced in his driveway until the streetlights flickered on, the rhythmic thump of the ball against the asphalt a constant soundtrack to his evenings. What the other players didn't see, what no one at school saw, was what Michael did before the sun even thought about rising. While they were still tucked in bed, dreaming of sleep, Michael was in the school gym. He'd convinced the janitor, Mr. Henderson, a kind, elderly man with a soft spot for underdogs, to unlock the doors for him. The gym was cold and dark at that hour, the only light coming from the pale glow of the rising sun filtering through the high windows. The silence was broken only by the squeak of Michael's sneakers and the swish of the net as he relentlessly practiced his shots. Hundreds of shots, every morning. Layups, free throws, three-pointers from every angle. He pushed himself until his muscles ached and his lungs burned. He dribbled until his fingers were numb. He knew it might not be enough. He knew that even with all the extra practice, he might still be the last one picked. But he couldn't stop. He had to try. He had to prove, if not to anyone else, then at least to himself, that he was more than just the guy who got picked last. He was Michael, and he loved basketball. And he was going to give it everything he had. He wanted them to know his name. He wanted to matter. He wanted to be more than an afterthought. This early morning training was his secret weapon, his silent promise to himself that he wouldn't give up. He would keep fighting for his chance, even if no one else believed in him. The alarm clock shrieked at 5 a.m., its insistent buzzing a rude awakening. Michael groaned and slapped the snooze button, burying his face in his pillow. 5 more minutes. That's all he needed. But 5 minutes turned into 10, and then 15. Guilt finally jolted him awake. He knew Mr. Henderson was already at the school, unlocking the gym. He couldn't be late. He threw off the covers and quickly dressed in his worn-out basketball shorts and a t-shirt. He laced up his sneakers, the familiar routine a small comfort in the face of the daunting task ahead. He grabbed a granola bar from the kitchen counter, his stomach rumbling in protest, and slipped out the back door, careful not to wake his parents. The air was crisp and cool, a stark contrast to the warmth of his bed. The sky was still dark, the stars twinkling like distant diamonds. The only sounds were the chirping of crickets and the distant hum of a passing car. As he walked towards the school, a wave of doubt washed over him. Was it worth it? All this effort, all this sacrifice, just to be the last one picked? He pushed the thought away. He had to believe in himself, even if no one else did. He reached the school and saw the faint light spilling from the gym windows. Mr. Henderson was already there, sweeping the floor. "Morning, Michael," Mr. Henderson said with a warm smile. "Ready to work hard?" "Yes, sir," Michael replied, his voice filled with determination. Mr. Henderson chuckled. That's the spirit. Remember, hard work always pays off, even if you don't see it right away. Michael nodded and headed onto the court. The gym was cold and echoey, the silence amplifying the sound of his footsteps. He started with his warm-up routine, jogging around the perimeter of the court, stretching his muscles. Then he moved on to his dribbling drills, practicing his ball control, his crossovers, his behind-the-back moves. He imagined himself weaving through defenders, effortlessly gliding to the basket. Next, he focused on his shooting. He started with layups, practicing his footwork, his release. Then he moved on to free throws, focusing on his form, his breathing. He imagined the pressure of the game, the crowd roaring, the score tied. He had to be ready to make the shot. Finally, he practiced his three-pointers. He moved around the arc, shooting from different spots, trying to find his rhythm. He imagined the ball soaring through the air, arcing perfectly towards the basket. Swish. Again and again, he shot, his muscles burning, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He practiced for hours, pushing himself to his limits. He knew he had to be better, faster, stronger. He had to be more than just average. He had to be exceptional. As the sun began to rise, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, Michael finally stopped. He was exhausted, his body aching, but he felt a sense of satisfaction. He had given it his all. He had done everything he could. He knew the scrimmage later that day would be tough. He knew he would probably be picked last again. But he also knew that he was ready. He was ready to show everyone what he was capable of. He was ready to prove that he was more than just the guy who got picked last. He was Michael, and he was a basketball player. And he was ready to play. His passion burned brighter than ever. He would not be denied. He would show them all. The school day crawled by. Michael sat through history class, his mind still replaying his morning practice. He barely heard Mr. Harrison drone on about the American Revolution. All he could think about was basketball. During lunch, he ate quickly, eager to get to the gym for open practice. The atmosphere in the gym was different now. It was buzzing with energy, filled with the chatter of teammates and the bounce of basketballs. Jake was holding court, surrounded by a group of admirers, effortlessly sinking three-pointers. Marcus was practicing his post moves, overpowering anyone who dared to defend him. Emily and Sarah were working on their passing, their movements quick and precise. Michael watched them, a mixture of admiration and envy swirling inside him. Coach Thompson walked onto the court, clapping his hands to get everyone's attention. "All right, everyone, listen up. We've got a big game coming up against Northwood. They're our biggest rivals, so we need to be ready." He began to outline the game plan, focusing on Jake's scoring ability and Marcus's rebounding prowess. He talked about Emily and Sarah's speed and agility. Michael listened intently, trying to absorb every detail. He knew his role was limited, but he wanted to be prepared for anything. "Jake, you're going to be our primary ball handler," Coach Thompson said. "We need you to control the tempo and create scoring opportunities." Jake nodded confidently. He loved being the center of attention. "Marcus, you need to dominate the boards," Coach Thompson continued. "We can't give them any second chances." Marcus flexed his muscles, a grin spreading across his face. As Coach Thompson continued outlining the strategy, Michael noticed a pattern. The entire game plan revolved around Jake, Marcus, Emily, and Sarah. He was barely mentioned. He was an afterthought, a backup plan in case something went wrong. During the scrimmage, Michael found himself on the bench for most of the time. He watched as Jake effortlessly drove to the basket, scoring point after point. He watched as Marcus overpowered his opponents, grabbing every rebound. He watched as Emily and Sarah zipped around the court, making quick passes and stealing the ball. He wanted to be out there, contributing, making a difference. But he knew his chance would probably never come. He was just Michael, the guy who got picked last. At one point, Coach Thompson glanced at Michael on the bench. "Michael, get in there for Jake. Jake, you need a breather." Michael's heart skipped a beat. This was his chance. He ran onto the court, his palms sweating. He tried to remember everything he had practiced that morning, every drill, every shot. He got the ball and dribbled cautiously, unsure of what to do. He looked for Jake, but then remembered he was supposed to be filling Jake's role. He passed the ball to Marcus, who was immediately double-teamed. The ball was stolen, and the other team scored. Coach Thompson sighed and shook his head. "Jake, get back in there," he said. Michael trudged back to the bench, his head hanging low. He had failed. He had proven that he wasn't good enough. He was just the guy who got picked last. But even as disappointment washed over him, a tiny spark of determination flickered within. He would not give up. He would keep practicing, keep working hard. He would be ready for his next chance, whenever that might be. He would show them all. He would. Weeks turned into months. The basketball season progressed, and the tension mounted as the championship game against Northwood High drew closer. Every practice was intense, every game a battle. The team's record was good, largely due to Jake's exceptional skills. He was a natural, blessed with talent that seemed to flow effortlessly. He could dribble through any defense, pass with pinpoint accuracy, and shoot with deadly precision. He was the team's star, the one everyone relied on. Coach Thompson's faith in Jake was unwavering. He structured the entire offense around him, giving him the freedom to make decisions on the court. While this strategy often led to victories, it also created a sense of dependence within the team. Everyone knew that as long as Jake was playing well, they had a chance to win. But if he faltered, the team struggled. Marcus, the center, was also a key player, but his role was more defined. He was the enforcer, the one who dominated the boards and protected the paint. He was strong and intimidating, and few dared to challenge him. Emily and Sarah were the quick, agile guards, known for their speed and defensive skills. They were valuable assets, but they were often overshadowed by Jake's brilliance. Michael continued his early morning training, pushing himself harder than ever. He knew his chances of playing in the championship game were slim, but he refused to give up hope. He focused on improving his skills, honing his technique, and building his confidence. He studied Jake's moves, trying to learn from his example. He watched videos of professional basketball players, analyzing their techniques and strategies. He also started working on his mental game, visualizing success, and building his self-belief. He knew that if he ever got the chance to play, he had to be mentally prepared. He had to be confident in his abilities and ready to perform under pressure. Despite his efforts, Michael remained on the periphery of the team. He was a hard worker, but he lacked the natural talent and charisma of Jake. He was a good teammate, but he wasn't a star. He was just Michael, the guy who got picked last. The dynamic within the team was clear. Jake was the leader, the one who everyone looked up to. Marcus, Emily, and Sarah were the supporting cast, each playing their role effectively. Michael was the outsider, the one who didn't quite fit in. He longed to be a part of the inner circle, to be recognized for his hard work and dedication. He wanted to earn the respect of his teammates and the coach. He wanted to prove that he was more than just the guy who got picked last. He wanted to matter. As the championship game approached, Michael knew he had to do something to stand out. He couldn't rely on his talent, because he didn't have as much as the others. He had to rely on his hard work, his determination, and his unwavering belief in himself. He would keep practicing, keep improving, keep pushing himself to his limits. He would be ready for his chance, whenever it came. He would show them all. He had to. He had to. The day of the championship game arrived, crackling with anticipation. The atmosphere in the school was electric. Banners and posters adorned the hallways, proclaiming support for the basketball team. Students wore the school colors, their faces painted with team logos. The air was thick with excitement and nervous energy. Northwood High was a formidable opponent. They were known for their aggressive defense, their disciplined offense, and their star player, a towering forward named Ben. Ben was a force to be reckoned with, a skilled scorer and a dominant rebounder. He was the biggest challenge to Marcus all season. The rivalry between the two schools ran deep, fueled by years of close games and intense competition. This year, the stakes were even higher. The winner of the championship would not only claim bragging rights but would also advance to the state tournament. As Michael walked into the gym, he was overwhelmed by the sheer size of the crowd. The bleachers were packed with students, parents, and alumni, all eager to witness the showdown. The noise was deafening, a cacophony of cheers, chants, and drumbeats. He saw his parents in the stands, waving excitedly. He smiled and waved back, feeling a surge of gratitude for their unwavering support. They had always believed in him, even when he doubted himself. He took his place on the bench, his heart pounding in his chest. He knew his chances of playing were slim, but he was ready to support his teammates in any way he could. He watched as Jake led the team onto the court, his face focused and determined. Marcus followed, his eyes blazing with intensity. Emily and Sarah, their movements quick and agile, were right behind them. The game began with a furious pace. Northwood came out strong, their defense stifling, their offense efficient. Ben quickly established himself as a dominant force, scoring at will and grabbing every rebound. Marcus struggled to contain him, and the team began to fall behind. Coach Thompson called a timeout, his face etched with concern. He gathered the team around him, his voice urgent. "We need to step up our defense," he said. "We can't let Ben dominate us like this." He looked at Jake, his eyes pleading. "Jake, we need you to take control. We need you to lead us back into this game." Jake nodded confidently. "I got this, coach," he said. The game resumed, but Northwood continued to maintain their lead. Jake tried to take control, but he was met with a relentless defense. Ben continued to dominate, scoring and rebounding at will. As the first half drew to a close, the team trailed by 10 points. The atmosphere in the gym was tense, the crowd growing restless. Michael watched from the bench, his heart sinking. He knew something had to change. They were losing. He looked at his teammates, their faces etched with frustration and despair. He knew they needed a spark, something to ignite their passion and turn the tide of the game. He wanted to be the one to provide that spark. He wanted to be more than just the guy who got picked last. He wanted to be a hero. He just needed a chance. The second half began with renewed intensity, but the tide didn't turn. Northwood continued to dominate, their lead widening with each basket. The team's morale plummeted, their faces etched with despair. The crowd grew silent, their hope fading with each passing minute. Then, disaster struck. Midway through the third quarter, Jake drove to the basket, attempting a difficult layup. He collided with Ben, the towering Northwood forward, and crumpled to the floor, clutching his ankle. A collective gasp swept through the gym. Coach Thompson rushed to Jake's side, his face filled with concern. The team doctor examined Jake's ankle, his expression grim. After a few tense moments, he shook his head. "He can't play," he said. "It's a sprain. He needs to be taken to the hospital." The news hit the team like a punch to the gut. Jake was their star, their leader, their hope. Without him, they felt lost, vulnerable. The atmosphere in the gym turned somber, the silence broken only by the muffled sobs of Jake's parents. Coach Thompson called a timeout, his face etched with desperation. He looked at his team, his eyes searching for a solution. He knew they were in trouble. Without Jake, their chances of winning were slim. "All right, everyone," he said, his voice strained. "We need to stay calm. We can still win this game. We just need to play as a team." He looked at Marcus, Emily, and Sarah, his eyes pleading. Marcus, you need to step up your rebounding. Emily, Sarah, we need you to be aggressive on defense. He paused, his gaze sweeping across the bench. He was desperate, grasping for any glimmer of hope. His eyes landed on Michael, who was sitting quietly, his face filled with a mixture of concern and determination. Coach Thompson hesitated. He had never relied on Michael before. He was the guy who got picked last, the one who always sat on the bench. But he was out of options. He had to try something. Michael, he said, his voice barely audible above the din of the crowd. Get in there. Michael's head snapped up, his eyes wide with surprise. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. Coach Thompson was calling his name. He was finally getting his chance. He stood up, his heart pounding in his chest. He felt a surge of adrenaline, a mixture of excitement and fear. He had trained for this moment, dreamed of this moment, but he never truly believed it would happen. He looked at Coach Thompson, his eyes filled with gratitude. I won't let you down, Coach, he said, his voice trembling. Coach Thompson nodded, his face etched with a mixture of hope and doubt. Just go out there and do your best, he said. That's all I ask. Michael ran onto the court, the roar of the crowd washing over him. He felt a sense of purpose, a sense of destiny. This was his chance to prove himself, to show everyone what he was capable of. He was no longer just the guy who got picked last. He was Michael, and he was ready to play. The team huddled around him, their faces etched with a mixture of surprise and encouragement. They were down, but not out. And maybe, just maybe, Michael could help them turn the tide. It was time to see what he could do. As Michael stepped onto the court, a ripple of murmurs spread through the crowd. Most people were surprised to see him. They knew him as the guy who always sat on the bench, the one who got picked last. They wondered what Coach Thompson was thinking, putting him in at such a critical moment. The Northwood team, however, didn't seem concerned. They saw Michael as a weak link, an easy target. Ben, the towering forward, smirked. Looks like they're giving up, he said to his teammates, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Michael ignored them, focusing on the task at hand. He was nervous, his hands sweating, his heart pounding. But he was also ready. He had trained for this moment, prepared for this opportunity. He wouldn't let his team down. The game resumed, and Northwood immediately targeted Michael. They double-teamed him, trying to force him into mistakes. They trash-talked him, trying to rattle his confidence. But Michael remained calm, remembering the mental exercises he had practiced. He wouldn't let them get to him. He received the ball and dribbled cautiously, surveying the court. He saw Marcus open under the basket and made a quick pass. Marcus caught the ball and went up for a layup, but Ben blocked his shot. The ball bounced out of bounds. Michael felt a wave of disappointment, but he didn't let it linger. He knew he couldn't afford to dwell on mistakes. He had to stay focused, stay positive. The next time he got the ball, he drove to the basket, surprising the Northwood defenders. He weaved through the defense, his movements quick and agile. He saw an opening and went up for a jump shot. The ball soared through the air, arcing perfectly towards the basket. Swish! The crowd erupted in cheers, their surprise quickly turning into excitement. Michael had scored. He had proven that he wasn't just the guy who got picked last. He was a basketball player, and he could contribute. The Northwood team, however, remained unfazed. They knew that one basket didn't change anything. They still had a comfortable lead, and they were confident they could maintain it. But Michael's basket had ignited something in his team. They played with renewed energy, their defense tightening, their offense flowing. Marcus started dominating the boards, Emily and Sarah became more aggressive on defense. Michael continued to contribute, making smart passes, playing solid defense, and scoring when the opportunity arose. He wasn't flashy like Jake, but he was effective. He was a team player, and he was doing everything he could to help his team win. As the third quarter came to a close, the team had narrowed the gap, reducing Northwood's lead to just 5 points. The atmosphere in the gym had shifted, the crowd roaring with encouragement. They believed in Michael, they believed in their team. They believed they could win. Michael had given them hope. And he wasn't about to let them down. He had more to give, more to prove. He would leave everything he had on that court. It was his time to shine. The fourth quarter was a nail-biter. The score went back and forth, each team trading baskets. The crowd was on its feet, their cheers deafening. Michael continued to play well, surprising everyone with his improved skills and unwavering determination. He made a crucial steal, intercepting a pass intended for Ben. He dribbled down the court, his eyes scanning his options. He saw Emily open on the wing and made a perfect pass. Emily caught the ball and sank a three-pointer, tying the game. The crowd went wild, their cheers shaking the very foundations of the gym. Michael's teammates mobbed him, their faces beaming with excitement. They knew he was playing the game of his life. His early morning training was paying off. The countless hours spent practicing his shooting, dribbling, and passing were evident in his every move. He was no longer just the guy who got picked last. He was a valuable member of the team, a player who could make a difference. Even Coach Thompson was impressed. He had always underestimated Michael, focusing on the more talented players. But now, he saw Michael in a new light. He saw his dedication, his hard work, his unwavering spirit. He realized that Michael had the heart of a champion. Northwood, however, refused to give up. They responded with a basket of their own, retaking the lead. Ben continued to be a dominant force, scoring and rebounding with ease. The game was far from over. Michael knew he had to keep playing his best. He couldn't afford to make any mistakes. He had to stay focused, stay positive, and continue to support his teammates. He made another key play, drawing a foul on Ben. He stepped up to the free throw line, his hands sweating, his heart pounding. He took a deep breath, focusing on his technique. He shot the ball, and it swished through the net. 1 point. He shot again, and the ball swished through the net once more. 2 points. The game was tied. The crowd erupted in cheers, their excitement reaching fever pitch. Michael had come through in the clutch, proving that he could perform under pressure. The final minutes of the game were a blur. The score remained close, each team battling for every point. The tension in the gym was palpable, the air thick with anticipation. With seconds left on the clock, Northwood had possession of the ball, leading by 1 point. They inbound the ball to Ben, who drove towards the basket. Michael stepped in front of him, drawing a charge. The referee blew his whistle, signaling a foul. The crowd gasped. Michael had drawn a charge on Ben, giving his team possession of the ball with just seconds remaining. This was their chance to win the game. This was Michael's chance to be a hero. The only question was, could he deliver? All eyes were on him. He was ready. Coach Thompson called a timeout, his face a mixture of excitement and anxiety. He gathered the team around him, his voice calm but firm. "All right, listen up," he said. "We have one last chance. We need to make it count." He looked at Michael, his eyes filled with confidence. "Michael, you're going to take the shot," he said. Michael's heart skipped a beat. He couldn't believe it. Coach Thompson was trusting him to take the final shot, the shot that would determine the outcome of the championship game. He nodded, his voice barely a whisper. "I won't let you down, Coach," he said. Coach Thompson outlined the play, emphasizing the importance of ball movement and spacing. He reminded them to stay calm and focused, to trust each other, and to believe in themselves. The team broke the huddle, their faces determined. They walked onto the court, the roar of the crowd deafening. Michael took a deep breath, trying to calm his nerves. He knew this was the biggest moment of his life. The clock ticked down, each second feeling like an eternity. The tension in the gym was palpable, the air thick with anticipation. Everyone was on their feet, their eyes glued to the court. Emily inbounded the ball to Marcus, who quickly passed it to Sarah. Sarah dribbled towards the basket, drawing the attention of the Northwood defenders. She then passed the ball back to Michael, who was open on the three-point line. Michael caught the ball, his heart pounding in his chest. He took a quick glance at the clock. 3 seconds left. He knew he had to shoot quickly. He dribbled once, creating some space between himself and the defender. He then rose up, his eyes focused on the basket. He released the ball, his movements fluid and precise. The ball soared through the air, arcing perfectly towards the basket. Time seemed to slow down, the world fading away. All that mattered was the ball, the basket, and the moment. The buzzer sounded, its shrill tone piercing the silence. The ball hung in the air for what seemed like an eternity. Then, with a satisfying swish, it went in. The crowd erupted in cheers, their joy unrestrained. Michael's teammates mobbed him, their faces beaming with excitement. They had won the championship. Michael stood there, stunned, his mind struggling to process what had just happened. He had done it. He had scored the game-winning basket. He had proven that he was more than just the guy who got picked last. He was a champion. He was a hero. And he would never forget this moment for the rest of his life. The game was won in the final seconds. He will forever be a hero. He earned it. The crowd erupted in cheers, their joy unrestrained. Michael's teammates mobbed him, their faces beaming with excitement. They had won the championship. Michael stood there, stunned, his mind struggling to process what had just happened. He had done it. He had scored the game-winning basket. He had proven that he was more than just the guy who got picked last. He was a champion. He was a hero. And he would never forget this moment for the rest of his life. But before the final shot, everything was different. The ball, warm and textured, felt like an extension of his own hand. Sarah's pass, crisp and precise, had found him perfectly, settling right into his shooting pocket. The world around him seemed to shrink, the roaring crowd fading into a dull hum. He wasn't aware of the sweat stinging his eyes, or the ache in his tired legs. There was only the basket, a distant orange ring suspended in the hazy gym lights. 3 seconds. He dribbled once, the sound echoing in the sudden, almost eerie silence that had fallen over the arena. A Northwood defender lunged towards him, desperation etched on his face. Michael sidestepped him with a quickness he didn't know he possessed, the move instinctive, honed from countless hours of early morning practice. 2 seconds. He rose, legs coiling and uncoiling like springs, his body remembering every shooting drill he had ever done. The ball felt weightless in his hands, guided by years of muscle memory. He blocked out the defender's outstretched arm, the taunting shouts from the Northwood bench, the pressure of the entire school resting on his shoulders. 1 second. His focus narrowed, his vision tunneling down to the orange rim. He released the ball, his movements smooth and effortless. He watched as it arced through the air, a perfect trajectory born of dedication and unwavering belief. 0 seconds. The buzzer sounded, a piercing shriek that sliced through the tension. But Michael barely heard it. His world was reduced to the ball, the basket, and the space between them. All he could do was watch, his breath held captive in his chest, his future hanging in the balance. He was utterly focused, completely present in that singular, defining moment. There was no past, no future, only the flight of the ball. It was everything. It was now. This was his time, finally. Years of being overlooked, underestimated, and relegated to the sidelines all converged into this one shot. This was his chance to rewrite his story. To redefine himself. To become the hero he always knew he could be. He had never felt more alive, more focused, more utterly and completely, ready. He just needed the ball to fall his way. This was everything. This was it. It had to be. He was ready. He just needed the ball to fall his way. This was everything. This was it. It had to be. The ball, released from his fingertips, spun perfectly, catching the light as it arced through the air. Time seemed to stand still. The buzzer blared, its sharp sound cutting through the silence like a knife. But Michael's eyes were locked on the ball, willing it towards its destination. Swish. The net rippled, the sound echoing through the gym like a thunderclap. The ball had gone in. The arena erupted. The roar of the crowd was deafening, a wave of pure, unadulterated joy washing over Michael. His teammates swarmed him, lifting him onto their shoulders, their faces beaming with excitement. They were champions. They had done it. Coach Thompson rushed onto the court, a wide grin spreading across his face. He embraced Michael, his voice choked with emotion. "You did it, Michael. You did it. I always knew you had it in you." The crowd chanted Michael's name, their voices growing louder and louder. He looked up at the stands and saw his parents, their faces wet with tears of pride. He smiled and waved, feeling a surge of gratitude for their unwavering support. He had done it. He had scored the game-winning basket. He had proven that he was more than just the guy who got picked last. He was a champion. He was a hero. And he would never forget this moment for the rest of his life. The celebration continued long after the final buzzer. The team cut down the net, each player taking a piece as a memento. They posed for pictures, their faces flushed with victory. They signed autographs, their hands shaking with excitement. Michael was the center of attention, the hero of the hour. He was interviewed by reporters, his voice filled with humility and gratitude. He thanked his teammates, his coach, and his parents for their support. He knew that this was just the beginning. He had a long way to go, but he was ready for the challenge. He had learned a valuable lesson that day, that anything is possible if you believe in yourself and never give up. And he will never be picked last again. He earned everyone's respect. Now, he is finally seen for who he truly is. He had always had it in him. It just took one game to prove it. And he will never let anyone forget it. He is Michael, the champion. The team had finally reached the summit. The impossible had been achieved. It was a miracle. It was a miracle. The gym transformed into a swirling vortex of jubilation. Confetti rained down from the stands, shimmering in the bright lights. The air vibrated with the collective roar of the crowd, a symphony of cheers, whistles, and applause. The team, a tangle of limbs and laughter, hoisted Michael onto their shoulders, parading him around the court like a conquering hero. Each teammate took a turn hugging Michael, their faces flushed with excitement and gratitude. Marcus, the towering center, clapped him on the back, his booming laugh echoing through the gym. Emily and Sarah, the quick-footed guards, jumped up and down, their cheers piercing the din. Even Jake, his ankle heavily bandaged, hobbled over to congratulate Michael, his eyes filled with genuine admiration. Coach Thompson, his face beaming with pride, pumped his fist in the air, leading the crowd in a thunderous chant of "Michael! Michael! Michael!" The celebration spilled out of the gym and into the school hallways. Students lined the corridors, banging on lockers and chanting the team's name. The atmosphere was electric, the entire school united in a shared sense of triumph. Michael's parents, their faces wet with tears of joy, rushed onto the court, enveloping him in a warm embrace. "We're so proud of you, Michael," his mother exclaimed, her voice choked with emotion. "We always knew you could do it." His father, his eyes shining with pride, squeezed his shoulder. "You never gave up, son," he said. "That's what makes you a champion." The victory celebration continued late into the night. The team gathered at a local pizza parlor, their laughter and chatter filling the restaurant. They ate pizza, drank soda, and relived the highlights of the game. Michael, still basking in the glow of victory, sat quietly, listening to his teammates, his heart overflowing with happiness. He had finally achieved his dream. He had proven himself to everyone. He was no longer just the guy who got picked last. He was a champion. He was a hero. And he would never forget this night for the rest of his life. He realized he had always been a part of the team, even when he sat on the bench. And now, they finally understood his worth. He was finally one of them. And it was the best feeling in the world. He had earned it. He deserved it. And he was finally, truly, happy. He belonged. He was home. This was his team, his family, his victory. They did it together. It was a dream come true. A perfect ending to a perfect night. He would never forget it. Never. He was now a legend. He was now a legend. The days that followed were a whirlwind of interviews, accolades, and newfound respect. Michael was no longer just that kid who gets picked last. He was Michael, the champion, the hero, the inspiration. The local newspaper ran a front-page story about his incredible journey, highlighting his unwavering dedication and his refusal to give up, even when faced with constant disappointment. The article quoted Coach Thompson, who admitted that he had underestimated Michael's potential. "I was wrong about Michael," Coach Thompson said. "He has the heart of a lion. He's a true inspiration to us all." His teammates, who had once overlooked him, now sought his advice and guidance. They realized that Michael's hard work and determination were just as valuable as Jake's natural talent. They respected him not just for his game-winning shot, but for his character, his humility, and his unwavering commitment to the team. Even Jake, who had always been the star, approached Michael with newfound humility. "You were amazing out there, Michael," Jake said, his voice sincere. "You saved us. I'm really proud of you." Michael smiled, his heart swelling with pride. He had finally earned the respect of his teammates and his coach. He had proven that even those who are underestimated can achieve great things. The school held a special assembly in his honor, where he was presented with a plaque recognizing his outstanding achievement. He spoke to the students, sharing his story and encouraging them to never give up on their dreams. "It doesn't matter where you start," Michael said, his voice filled with emotion. "What matters is where you finish. If you believe in yourself, work hard, and never give up, you can achieve anything." His words resonated with the students, who gave him a standing ovation. Michael had become a role model, a symbol of hope and inspiration for the entire school. But more than the accolades and the recognition, what mattered most to Michael was the feeling of belonging. He had finally found his place. He was no longer an outsider, an afterthought. He was a valued member of the team, a respected member of the school community. He had proven that hard work, dedication, and unwavering belief in oneself can overcome any obstacle. He had shown the world that even the underdog can rise to the top. And he had learned that true victory lies not just in winning, but in the journey, in the friendships, and in the lessons learned along the way. Michael's story became a legend, a tale told and retold for years to come. It was a reminder that even the most ordinary person can achieve extraordinary things if they have the courage to believe in themselves and the determination to never give up. He will forever be known as Michael, the champion, the hero, the kid who proved that anyone can achieve their dreams. He was picked last, but he finished first. And that's all that matters. The end.